Hello, it's me again. What I started working on was a new project. My first locomotive that I ever built from junk parts was a T14444, and as well as it came out, it really wasn't scale, and it was up too high, and there's just a lot of issues with it. And I'm still happy with it, and it runs great. But I decided to build another one, so I came across a shell, just the top piece here where you see was, I believe, MTH shell, just this section here. So what I did was I measured that. I bought it off eBay for a couple bucks, very cheap actually. I measured that, and we'll just for argument's sake say it was 7.5 inches. I don't know what it was. We'll call it 8. So what I did was I downloaded a picture of the same locomotive and measured from here to here and brought this image, so from here to here would be the same. So I knew that the scale was going to be right. Then I traced this image. This crap in yellow is me. I traced this and I plotted it out of very thin Lexan that looks like this. I plotted it with a plotter. It scores it and you snap it, and that's how I made the sides. I did the bottom plate for what the shell would rest, the top shell would rest on, the part that I bought would rest on it. That would be this, and then the sides. And I sanded it all down, scuffed it really good, and glued it together. And then I sprinkled it with the glue with baking soda and loaded it up with glue. Everything has got to be sanded if it's going to be permanent, because it will be a nightmare to break apart. If you don't sand it, you'll be able to snap it apart. So this was the original image. Oh, hold on here, I'm not too good at this. This was a picture of my locomotive. So what I did was I brought that in there for a reference, just to see how far mine was off. It was about maybe 3/8 of an inch off in length, a quarter of an inch. Not too big of a deal. So what I did was I grabbed some images of some Hudsons, which have the in real life anyway, they're 79-inch drivers. The T1 is 80-inch, so they're relatively close. What I did was I just chopped them and pasted them to kind of line them up, figure out where they would go and whatnot, sort of like that. And then last night I spent the night chopping the chassis and flip-flopping them and doing all this crazy stuff to move the cylinders on the rear set closer, cutting the drive rod that goes from the wheel to the piston, shortening that. So it was a little bit of work. So what I came up with, this is, mind you, this didn't happen all in one night. This took a couple days. So here is the shell that I built. Now everything is clear or white is made. I made the nose because that didn't come with it. I made the front piece here. Obviously this blue piece. That's what they call Sintra. Those are stairs. They look horrible from the front because they're clear. But the reason why they look horrible is because there's crazy glue and whatnot, and baking soda holding them in place. So Sintra is basically a soft PVC. So I made that, made this. You really can't really see too much because it doesn't have any color. But the walkways and whatnot, that's all set. I started to Dremel out the windows. That's going to be a nightmare. And the ladders. And the first piece, what I did was I glued these sides to a rectangle, then glued it to the shell. and then cut all the extra material out. So it's kind of like a Bachmann shell, is basically what it is. It's easy to do it that way for me. That way I can make the chassis. Now the chassis is actually a 2.5 inch or maybe a 3-inch plastic roll that rolls of tint come on. I cut a section of that, and it's pretty flexible. So what I did was I see this is all Lexan, thin Lexan, all crazy glued in. There's other stuff on the bottom that's to give it strength so it can't flex. I cut the section out in the middle. That's where the motor's going to go. So these trucks were from a Hudson 464. My favorite locomotive to chop up, because you can do a lot with them. So what we have here is, this would be, if you were looking at a Hudson, this would be the rear driver. The transmission is mounted right above it. And this would be the center driver. So I lopped off that frame, and I took the front piston section, the metal and everything, and transplanted that to the front. And then this is going to be sort of like a Rivarossi big boy. One truck is going to pick up juice from fireman's side, and the rear truck will pick up juice from the engineer side, the right side of the locomotive. So I had to pull these off and flip-flop these. The frame, I didn't solder any of the frame. It's got basically epoxy holding it front section to the back. So I have to loop a wire. I have to solder a wire from here to the frame itself to give this whole plate. This whole plate is screwed into plastic. It is not screwed into metal. So the little wheel pickup will not have contact right now. There's no wiring obviously on this. This is just a mock-up. It's got to be taken apart, cleaned, and everything. So, and then the rear is the rear of the Hudson. This would be the center wheel, and then I chopped the front, off the pistons and moved them back. See how close they are to the wheels. So I had a little bit of this is not a Hudson rear truck. I don't know what it's from, but it is Rivarossi. Everything here is Rivarossi, or it's homemade, one or the other. So these two wheels on the right side will pick up power, and one of these wheels, the wheel that doesn't have the traction tire on it, will pick on power. Now I was thinking about doing a dual motor like I did in my other one. It would have been a lot easier if I had done that, but I wanted to have weight, have room for lead. So anyway, so this is just plastic that's bonded to the frame here, and everything has got to be centered. Now when you look at it, it might not be centered because this block might not be centered, but it's in the center of the actual frame itself, which is all that matters. Now as far as how I mounted the transmission or the truck to this, what we got here is, if you have a rivet and you pull the center pin out, what I used was a small rivet that I sanded down the bottom a little bit, and it is bonded to the top of this truck. I sliced the truck down, the top of the transmission housing flat, scuffed it all up and bonded the top of the rivet. The actual rivet itself is bonded to the top of the transmission. It's pretty damn strong. I actually had to break one off to reposition it because it dried crooked. So that allows this to go up and down without hitting any threads and catching. There's a spring underneath there. This right here is a little tiny screw. I buy them a set, a box of screws. I cut the head off of it and glued it inside the rivet and gave it a little crimp so it can't come out. It's not going to come out. So anyway, then we have the nut on the top, and this silver piece is actually the top head of a rivet. The reason why I chose that is because it's like a bowl. It's rounded, so it allowed the body to shift instead of having it on a washer, which if it needed to shift, it might tip over instead of doing that. So as you can see the bottom of it's like a bowl. I did the same thing with the front. The front truck has the same situation going on. I don't know, I can't get enough weight on it here, but you can see it. It's see how it's not flat, so it's arched. So that allows the chassis to rock back and forth. So that's pretty much it as far as that goes. I had to cut the center of that out in order to get this motor in. This is the biggest motor that I will be able to get in there. I wanted to get a different motor in there, but the transmission, both transmissions are so close that the drive shafts would not, even though I'm using flexible hose, they would be stressed in a downward position, and I just don't want that. I want it to be more like what you see here, which obviously it's crooked. This motor will be mounted to rubber, so the shell won't vibrate. I just left these pieces of Lexan in there just to hold the motor, but that's basically how it will be, and there'll be rubber drive shafts, and this will be able to operate back and forth. Now, I think I got, excuse me for this mess, I'm at work, and I haven't cleaned the office in a long time because I'm the only one here. Let me just put the camera down for a second. And right now what I'm doing is I'm putting the train. This is actually the first time I've had this locomotive on a 18, but that's an 18-inch radius track. My first T1 that I built, unfortunately, to make it run on 18s, even though it didn't need to, I only had the front articulate, the back was solid. Because of that, I had to make it blind driver. And if that was the case, I might as well have just had, like the MTH, just have 4 blind drivers and have rims on the front and the back. But I hate the way the blind drivers look, especially when they're homemade. They look horrible. So I made it articulated, and right now I'm going to slap the shell on there, and we want to see what it looks like. Just give me a second. Alright, so we're on the track now. So that's what it looks like on an 18-inch. I barely have any 18-inch on my my Ghetto Fabulous layout. But that's what she looks like. So she's not bad, and you can see, let's see if I can point to it. You can see up here there's a clear piece above the rims. I cut those out so the rims can clear it when you go through turns. That's all going to be black. The reason being is I was just trying to hide the fact that the transmission and all that stuff is, I don't want you to see right through the bottom of the locomotive. And the motor is going to hang down in the middle of it, so you're not going to see that either. And obviously there'll be a firebox here, and there'll be some stuff in the front. There'll be compressors in here, and on the other side another compressor and some bells. But yeah, this locomotive came out obviously way better than the first one. First one I just kind of was winging it, and the first one, the entire shell is made out of junk parts and a piece of tubing, but I wanted something a little bit more realistic, so bought this, I think 20 bucks on eBay, just the top piece. The guy doesn't even sell trains. He must have just got a box of junk and just didn't even know what it was for, but I bought it, and here we are. So I still have to put a drawbar in there, which I completely forgot about. So I dropped the ball on that one, but yeah. So anyway, so that's it, and hopefully I'll have another update in a couple days. Thank you for watching, and sorry for rambling. Have a great weekend.